As promised, despite it being a new day, or should I say new evening, of different attire and much puffier hair, we will finish up reviewing some of the lines that Black can play when we play into our knight attack, trying to get the fried liver going. Black plays d5, we capture it, and rather, no knight a5, no knight d5, but knight to d4, as well as the move pawn to b5 immediately. Now, both of these moves rely on counterplay against our bishop. And against both of those moves, we have a similar looking response, okay? One of those moves is better than the other. The immediate b5 is rushed. It's a rushed move. And the better move is knight d4, and when we attack the knight, then and only then, Black playing b5 is a bit tricky, okay? With both of these moves, though, Black is trying to lead us to the exact same thing. Now, b5 on its own, the point is clear. If you take the knight, they take your bishop, and you kind of don't have much of an attack anymore. For a brief second, you're up a pawn, but trust me, you're not going to feel that. It's not going to feel like you're up a pawn. They're going to win the pawn back very quickly, kick your knight out, etc. And taking here, just, Black is going to play queen takes, attacking this with pretty good counterplay. Which is why in this position, we play the absolutely ridiculous bishop to f1. You can accomplish a very similar thing by putting the bishop on the e2 square. The only drawback of this move is that if the queen goes to d5, it's actually attacking the pawn on g2, whereas this move completely prevents queen takes d5 from having any impact. As if Black plays it now, you play knight c3 and win the pawn, and now you have no problems. You'll castle, you can play queen f3, putting more pressure. You can even play a move like d4, very aggressive move, take the knight, but obviously in the future and depending on the position. But yeah, b5 bishop f1 is very classy. The knight is still attacked, and now when the knight goes to d4, you can kick it out and simply win this pawn completely, which is not, you're going to see that's not really how it goes in the other position. So really, most people here take with the knight. They change the plan, and now this knight is under attack. But now you slingshot back into action. The point is that Black can't play queen takes now. So Black kind of messed up here, right? You went back to f1 anticipating Black's move, and so now Black probably has to defend c6, right? Because if they take on g5, you win the knight, and then it's a triple fork. And here, probably the best move is to take here, although this is very dangerous. So if I was you, I would just take the knight, defend my king, still be attacking the rook, put my bishop on f3 and just castle. This is just how I would play the position. So instead of queen g5, most people will defend the bishop. It's better to defend the knight. It's better to defend the knight with the bishop by going here, because here you protect the knight and have a lot of activity. Here I just recommend a very simple move, pawn to d3. The knight is defended, and we can castle. If Black plays bishop to e7, targeting the knight, we can just bring it back. We're just a pawn up. I mean, the gambit just really didn't work, but of course, there's still chess ahead. The move bishop d7, this knight is now protected, but this knight isn't, and so now there are a bunch of tactics, like we still go d3, but in this version, here's a beautiful knight sacrifice for you, and Black's king is in a lot of trouble. So are the other pieces. You have a fork. They cannot come back and block with the knight because you win the knight on c6. So some people here will try to go like this. And this position is totally winning for white, because after king d6 and takes, you threaten queen d5 and bishop a3 mate. And you may win a game like this. This is just a nice way to win. Obviously, the game doesn't have to go exactly like this, but just remember that if you get here, it's better to block on b7 rather than on d7 for Black. But just in general, the move b5 is very well met with a cold shower of bishop all the way back to f1. And if you remember that, you're going to be great. This move is more annoying, because now we try to kick the knight out. Otherwise, Black is going to take our pawn in the center with a great game. If Black plays knight f5, right, just like keeps moving, you can't really defend this. Like, you can try to play queen f3 and then castle. You can do that. Me personally, though, I would recommend castling. And on knight d5, I would recommend this very nice move, rook e1. And it's actually really annoying for Black to make a move here. You have a lot of counterattacks. You're attacking the knight, you're attacking the pawn. Almost everything is a trap here. Like, queen takes, don't go here, because they have this. But here, you can just take the knight, and this is defended in every checkmating opportunity, and, you know, d4's coming with an attack here, and still, and rook e5 is a threat. So, yeah, knight f5, you know, just castles and rook e1. Most people who play knight d4 are going to follow it up with b5, which obviously makes sense. And now we play here, and we've reached the same position as we just were looking at, minus there's a knight on d4, so it probably has to move. But it can't. It can't move, because if it moves, you just take the pawn with a check. So what most people do here is they play knight takes d5, and now things get very hectic. If a person goes for this against you with black, they're either getting super lucky and they're going to make a massive mistake in the next few moves, or they prepared this, they know the line, and you have to know the line too, because it's actually a tiny bit dangerous. Tiny bit, all right? That's why, you know, that's why we learn this, because that's the way chess works. That's why you subscribe to the site, because, you know, I got to teach you stuff. So b5, bishop f1, knight takes d5. We take the knight, they take our knight. Now we take the pawn with check, right? So at this point, black has to go here. It's the only move. King e7 is not completely idiotic, but it's pretty idiotic because it just blocks the bishop and gets the king more closely to our position. But even that doesn't make sense. I don't even know, but you get the point. You get the point. King is closer to our position, right? It moves more closely to our position. Doesn't make any sense. Everything that I'm going to show you after king d8 can be applied to king e7, and it's just a worse version. And if bishop d7, you know, you're under some attack here, so just take, and maybe play like queen f3 with an attack on the knight, with an attack on the pawn on f7. You know, you're going to castle on the next move, and black's king is just in the middle. You can't really play chess like this. Not to mention there were some queen a4s, but yeah, look, bishop d7 is a bad move. The really scary move is king d8. We castle our king, and black goes here. If you make a mistake at this point, black will win the game immediately. Black is just straight up threatening knight to e3 with an attack on the queen, and if you take the knight, you get mated. So yeah, knight e3 is a fatal knockout punch, which is why you need to remember queen f3. You don't have time for taking pawns. You have to play queen f3, which counterattacks black and threatens the pawn on f7, which threatens mate and threatens queen h3. So at this point, if black, like, you know, hesitates and doesn't play rook b8, which is the only move. Rook b8 defends the bishop, enabling the knight to move. If black goes a move like bishop d6, you know, here I'm looking at queen f7, because queen f7 is a mate. Oh, sorry, queen f7 is a mate threat. I'm also looking at moves like this, because you need to get your pieces in the game as well. You got to get your bishop in the game, and you know, you've got moves like knight c3 whenever you want them. And the point of knight c3 is that when your knight gets captured, you can take the bishop. And as long as you trade off some of black's active pieces here, you're going to be doing very well. The rook is under attack. Like, here's a way that black can, you know, lose all their pieces. And now you just have to not get checkmated. So bishop d6 doesn't work. The only thing black can do is play rook b8. And now we go here. We finally take the pawn. On our next move, we're going to go d4, counterattack the queen with a great position and a healthy two-pawn advantage. The only remaining move that black has is still this ridiculous knight e3. And if they play all this against you, it means they reviewed it, and now you have to remember queen h3. This defends the mate and threatens a mate on them. So if they take this pawn or this rook, queen d7 is a mate. That is a move that you land in a blitz game. And if, for example, black plays bishop c8, defending mate and counterattacking, now you can take the knight, because otherwise you were getting mated. I hope you understand, right? That is the triple attack. That is why that pawn has to stay protected. And here, generally black does this. Take. They could take with the knight. If they take with the bishop, you actually take this knight. And when they take the rook, this bishop returns home. Now you have a bishop and a knight for a rook. You also have an extra pawn. And after a few more moves, you'll play an endgame where you have a significant advantage. Bring your pieces, make sure everything stays protected, put some pressure on black, okay? Like I said, this is a tricky line. You've got to remember about 12, 13 moves. But before we kind of go back to the beginning, if knight takes, look, you could do a handful of things here. D4 is the best move. And then if knight h4, you fork. And then you have to remember, don't allow this. I would just trade off the knight and, you know, develop this one so this bishop is protected. You have a 1-pawn advantage. You played 18 moves, but you're slightly better and the position's good. Just, again, don't accidentally blunder checkmate. Make sure your king has some shelter. Look, we went pretty deep, so the way you got to memorize this is basically everything I showed you has to be played. It's like a series of only moves. b5 is worse than knight d4. Knight d4 is better than b5. Now this is all fine. Take, check, king d8 has to be played, because if it's not played, if black does this, then you play everything that I already showed you, which is here, bishop b7, queen f3, rook b8, but then there's a king on e7. Like, the king doesn't make sense there. The king should be on d8. And if you play this, you know, in an intelligent way, you shouldn't really run into many problems. Like with the king there, I'm always looking at rook e1 stuff. You know, I'm looking at always an attack down the center of the board rather than on the d8 square. But yeah, also there's a check on a3 whenever you want it, and then you can maybe get to a7. By the way, that actually looks... I mean, I am doing a very elementary, you know, scan here, but if the king goes back and we get this, like, that looks pretty bad for black. But again, we always have to be careful and make sure we're mindful of our counterattack. So, king d8, we castle, we play queen f3, and now the last piece of the puzzle, you have to remember this queen h3 move. It's a long video, but honestly, it's because I don't want you to get hit with knight d4 and then lose. Knight d4 is a tricky move, but learn the stuff, and you're going to be fine.